back now. Anyone who meditates or has reached spiritual heights knows that all is one. But that can get boring. So the creative force created a reality of duality to entertain the play of two different forces. So we have night and day, contraction and expansion, water and fire, softness and hardness, earth and heaven, feminine and masculine, and so forth. The play of the universe is the interaction of these two forces. We have them inside us too. Everyone has the masculine and feminine tendencies within them. This is a very important point. The masculine and feminine are within each one of us. It's the hieros gamos, the sacred marriage between the two forces that make us human. That said, we can also notice that in general, women have more feminine tendencies and men have more masculine tendencies. So, what is the divine feminine? What is the divine masculine? They are the forces of contraction and expansion, or relationship on autonomy, or yielding and resistance. In nature, they exist in nature. They don't need a body to exist, but when they move through us, they exist in us, as us. What I'd like to talk about right now is how the divine forces of the feminine and the masculine have manifested in human beings throughout history, and what is happening now to the balance between them. Let's define more what I mean by masculine and feminine. So here's a chart of communion and agency, or so-called feminine and masculine, or yin and yang. And they're these two different ways of being. So we see softness or hardness, contraction or expansion, down or up, relationship or autonomy, a focus on preservation of the species or preservation of the self, community and personhood, responsibilities and rights, instinct and skills, being or doing. Now, what I haven't read here are pathological expressions of the different principles. So the pathological feminine manifests as fusion with others, loss of identity, fear of independence. And the pathological masculine can manifest as a severing of networks, the ego gone wild, fear of relationship, which are often found in woman and man. And I want to look at another relationship that we have between the right brain and the left brain, because we do live in a world of duality and our bodies manifest this also. In the right brain, which is what controls the left hand, we have an intuitive tendency, whereas in the left brain, which is what controls the right hand, we have a rational tendency. So the right and left are the tendencies toward holism or linearity. The right brain sees connections, the left brain makes distinctions, the right brain links, the left brain ranks. There's feeling versus logical. The left hand, controlled by the right brain, is what holds the child, whereas the right hand throws the spear. The image is mainly processed in the right brain and the word in the left brain, and these are the so-called feminine and masculine values. So, let's start out with a question to see how much you have been paying attention to human history of the last several thousand years. Which force would you say has been dominant in our history, the feminine or the masculine? If you said masculine, you're correct. It's the force of agency, of independence, of the penetrating, ego-driven action. So, to bring more balance, what I'm going to focus on right now is the feminine principle. Let's look at the divine feminine and how it is manifested in our world. Now, I did not wake up one day and decide to learn all this. My partner James and I have worked together for the past 17 years on a tantric art project called Venus and Her Lover, and it required that we give up our comfortable lives and discover for ourselves how the human race got so out of balance and what we could do to get back in balance. Our artistic journey began in the Caribbean, where we had a house on the beach. James was painting paintings of us as lovers, and the paintings began communicating to me. I wrote down what I learned as poetry. The characters in the paintings were the gods and goddesses of the ancient world. This became our tantric art project, Venus and Her Lover. Venus and Her Lover convinced us to sell the house, property, and so forth, and we moved to Europe, where we could feel and study the old myths. We lived in Tuscany, in Italy. Then the art project moved us to Hawaii, where we learned from a fiery earth goddess, Pele, the Hawaiian goddess of the volcano. Then we were led into the United States and lived in New Mexico, where we learned from the Native American cosmology. And finally, we moved to India, the birthplace of Tantra and the yogic philosophy. There we came to understand the power of the old Hindu myths of the gods and goddesses. Along the way, we made pilgrimages, always seeking answers to the question, what started the war between the sexes, and what would it be like if we were collaborative and supporting and celebrating one another, celebrating our diversity. One of the things we discovered is that we have been living under an unjust system based on separation and domination. Some people call it the patriarchy. I prefer to call it the dominator culture or the anti-sovereignty agenda. I use the term dominator culture because it's not just men oppressing women. It's a system that oppresses the healthy masculine and healthy feminine within everybody. And we, all of us, women and men, have this system operating within us. As we participate in the dominator culture, or the agenda against sovereignty, we express the pathological masculine and feminine. My life's work is to call us back into balance and into health. In our modern world, in general, we organize our society based on a hierarchy, a pyramid. Now, the pyramid structure can go pathological, as I think we very well know, because of the patriarchal pyramid and hierarchy. In our prehistory, the divine feminine was honored in the tribal system. The tribe is based on a circle. The sense of self is sacrificed for the good of the tribe, and this, too, can become pathological. The tribes practiced, and still practice, an earth-based spirituality. The earth is considered our mother. She's known as Gaia, Pachamama. In goddess-worshipping societies, relationship and caring for the children and all the descendants are important. James and I visited Crete, the last goddess culture in Europe, to feel what it must have been like. The goddess was honored. Sports were cooperative, not competitive. Here we see 3 team members working cooperatively to overcome the challenge of this raging bull. Now here is their definition of a macho man, one who's able to pit himself against the dangers of the sea and bring back fish for his family. Contrast this with the imagery of ancient Greece. Until 1700 BCE, there's no evidence of weapons, no fortifications in Crete. An advanced civilization was based on cooperation. Here in Minoan Crete, we find an alternative to the dominator culture, a partnership culture. It says, we are all in this together. It's a social organization with more feminine values. The earth goddess appears in most tribal cultures from around the world. By concentrating on the so-called masculine values of logic over feeling, self-preservation over species preservation, and rights over responsibilities, we have created a non-sustainable society. It's based on a pyramid. Everyone is held in place through fear and domination. Do this or else, violent consequences. Non-sustainable society. What is the definition of non-sustainable? It will not survive. That is the logical result. Guess what stage of the game we are in now? A non-sustainable system is reaching its logical conclusion. It is destroying itself because it is out of balance. It does not value the mother. But there is a great change happening. The divine feminine is rising within us to correct the imbalance. It shows us several things. That mother takes care of her children and the grandchildren and so on. Mother Earth is cared for. We refuse to poison the environment, to waste resources by buying things we don't need, to support exploitation. Instead, we act like the earth and recycle. We plant trees, we plant food, we conserve water. We let our energies flow. Now, I'm not suggesting that we all go back to the tribal system. I'm suggesting that we take some of their values and apply them to us in our modern world. I'm also not suggesting that we discard the advances that the masculine has made in the last centuries. It is because of the triumph of reason, of rationality, that rational people agreed that everyone deserved rights. So we had the emancipation of slaves, women's right to vote, the end of child labor, rights for handicapped people, the rights of nature. For example, the Ecuadorian Constitution enshrined this right, the rights of nature. Just as the masculine principle brought us the ideas of universal rights, now the feminine principle is bringing us the ideas about universal care. So, when businesses are making decisions, they consider profits, the need to conquer nature, their right to self-interest, so that the feminine principle in us must speak up and say, wait, we must provide service that makes people's lives better without harming others or the environment. We must add in the costs of pollution that make the air dirty, that make the fish sick, that make us also stressed out living in this modern world. And that business would make an accurate accounting of these costs so that we can make the correct decision. Right now in business, these are called externalities because they put the costs on others, on the environment, on future generations. The feminine principle says, let us take care of one another. So, when we go shopping, we read labels. If we see transgenico or GMO, a genetically modified organism, we do not buy it because GMOs are against life. When we garden, or if we're instructing the gardener, we consider the effects of using the herbicide Roundup. Is my garden worth causing infertility, birth complications, gastrointestinal diseases, allergies, cancer, and so forth? We make a decision, weighing what the costs and the benefits are. Just like the yin has a dot of yang in it, The divine feminine, the nurturer, has a fierce warrioress in her. Here we see several goddesses: Kali, Durga, Athena. The warrioress defends life. She makes sure the children are properly cared for and that they are safe and healthy. She thinks about how our actions affect her grandchildren and their grandchildren and so forth. On my altar at home, I have the Minoan or Cretan snake goddess. She reminds me of the strength I have within me and my ability to stand up. In Native American tribal culture, there was a grandmother's council, a circle of the wise old women. They had the power to appoint the chief and the warriors, and they could remove the chief if he was not governing properly. Those of us who are elders, who have earned our silver hairs, our wisdom, have the responsibility of sharing it with our families and our society. Native Americans also had the custom of, when the tribe was making a decision, they had to consider the effects on 7 generations hence. When we are making decisions, we can also use the 7th generation rule. The earth is now asking us, especially the women, to use our innate power to save life on earth. We have the instinct for life, and life itself is asking us to defend our instincts. The pendulum of history is now swinging back to the feminine. Of course, the dominator culture is going to fight against this. It is fighting against this. And they will eventually lose. The question is, will humanity survive to see the end of non-sustainability? If so, then we must reconstruct a society using a new model, one that balances the masculine reason, skill, and rights with the feminine feelings, intuition, responsibilities, and compassion. We have it within us. Let us nurture it within us. Let us nurture the power to care so that we can change the course of history. In 2009, the Dalai Lama declared, "The world will be saved by the Western woman." He believes in us. Do we believe in us? I believe in the Hieros Gamos, the sacred marriage within each one of us. We are the rainbow bridge between Father Sky and Mother Earth. So, I invite us all to stand up in that, to stand, let that energy flow between the 2 currents, because they are the 2 currents of life. And in that way, I believe that we as a human race will survive and thrive. Thank you very much for listening to my ideas.